All right, in this explainer, we are tackling one of the most maddening problems you can run into with Kali Linux in VirtualBox. That browser that just mysteriously starts to lag. You know, when your VM feels like it's grinding to a halt the second you open Firefox. Yeah, this one's for you. You totally know this feeling, right? One day, your VM is just flying, the terminal is snappy, your tools are responsive, and then the next day, poof, your browser feels like it's wading through thick mud, typing has this weird hesitation, scrolling stutters, and you start questioning your entire setup. Trust me, it's not just you. It's a classic problem, and the fix is usually way, way simpler than you'd think. So let's get super specific about what this looks like. We're talking about that scroll stutter, where you're on a long page and it just kind of micro-jitters as you go down. We're talking about input delay, where you type a command and the cursor just takes that extra beat to catch up. And that weird slow motion feeling when you're just trying to switch between tabs. But here's the key. Your CPU usage is totally fine. This isn't a processor problem, it's a graphics problem, wearing a clever disguise. Okay, so let's stop guessing and start proving what's really going on. Instead of burning hours randomly tweaking vCPUs or swapping drivers, we're going to run one simple, elegant test that will nail down the cause of your lag in like 60 seconds flat. Here it is, the 3D toggle test, just 4 steps. Now, the most important step here is number 1, power off the VM completely. And I mean completely. Don't just use a saved state because that can actually preserve the exact weird graphics glitch we're trying to get rid of. Then you just pop into Settings, go to the Display tab, and uncheck that little box that says Enable 3D Acceleration. Boot it up fresh, and go right back to that same web page that was driving you crazy. And the difference? Oh man, it is almost always immediate and just dramatic. That sticky scrolling is suddenly buttery smooth. The hesitant typing is gone, it's instant. Tabs switch with that satisfying little snap. This isn't some minor improvement. For a lot of people, this is the thing that takes a VM from totally unusable to perfectly productive. Just think about that for a second. 2 minutes. That's all it takes to run this test. Compare that to the hours you could waste adding more CPU cores, trying different graphics controllers, or reinstalling guest editions. All those things that feel like you're doing something, but are usually aimed at a completely different problem. So now for the really interesting part, the why. Why would a feature that's literally called acceleration be the very thing that's slowing you down? It sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, this is what I like to call the performance paradox, and it all comes down to how your browser actually draws things on the screen. See, your browser doesn't just paint a flat picture on your screen. It's actually managing dozens, sometimes hundreds of different layers for text, images, videos, animations, the whole shebang. That process is called compositing. And for a virtual GPU that's trying to translate all those commands for your real hardware, well, it's a constant, demanding workload. It's basically a polite torture test that's designed to expose any little weakness in that translation layer. This sets off a whole chain reaction. It starts with you just using your browser heavily. Maybe you've got DevTools open or you're on a site that uses WebGL. This forces the compositor inside your Kali VM to work way harder, which puts a ton of stress on VirtualBox's 3D translation layer. And that is the weak link in the chain. Any tiny quirk in your main computer's graphics drivers now suddenly becomes visible inside the VM as stutter and lag. By disabling 3D, you just snip. You cut out that entire problematic pathway. And let's be real for a second. For most of the stuff we do in Kali, you don't need silky smooth window animations or fancy graphical effects. What you need is a terminal that is instantaneous. You need Burp Suite to feel snappy. You need your browser to scroll without putting up a fight. For this kind of work, responsiveness is the real performance metric, not eye candy. So, we found the fix. That's awesome. Now let's talk about making this permanent. We're going to establish a stable, reliable baseline configuration. Because a boring VM is a productive VM. It's the one you can rely on and just stop thinking about. Now, I know a lot of people's first instinct is to start swapping graphics controllers. But for this specific issue, it's usually a waste of time. For a modern Kali install, VMSVGA is the right default. The controller isn't the problem, it's the acceleration setting on that controller. The other ones are for totally different use cases, like Windows guests or old legacy systems. So just stick with the default and focus on that 3D toggle. So how do you know for sure if this fix is for you? Let's do a quick checklist. Is your terminal totally fine, but it's the browser that's laggy? Does the lag get way worse on really complex websites like dashboards? Do you tend to use DevTools, a ton of tabs, or burp at the same time? And finally, are you running this VM on a high-res display or a multi-monitor setup? If you answered yes to 2 or more of those, then that 3D toggle test should be the very next thing you do. All right, now let me save you some time by talking about the common rabbit holes people fall into. These are the things that feel like fixes, but they lead to even more frustration because they just don't address the root cause of this specific kind of lag. Here are the top 3 time wasters. Mistake number 1, swapping those graphics controllers before you've even tried turning off 3D. You're just adding more confusion. Mistake number 2, and this is a huge one, trying to test performance after resuming from a saved state. It's not a clean test. And number 3, just throwing more CPU cores at the problem. This is a graphics pipeline issue, not a CPU issue. It's like trying to fix a flat tire by putting a bigger engine in the car. I'm going to say this one more time because it is the single most important rule for troubleshooting performance inside a VM. A save state is super convenient, I get it, but it can literally lock in weird, buggy graphics conditions. If you want a real, honest-to-goodness test, you have to always start with a clean boot. Okay, let's bring it all home. Here is your concrete action plan. This is what you should do the second this explainer is over. Power off the VM, no saved state. Disable 3D acceleration, do a cold boot, and go test that same laggy page. And if it's fixed, and there's a really, really good chance it will be, then you stop. That's it. Bank the win. You've found your stable baseline, so stop tweaking. So we've pretty much established that a boring, predictable VM is a productive one. The big lesson here wasn't just about a checkbox in a settings menu. It was about proving what's wrong instead of just guessing. So that leaves me with one final question for you to chew on. What other default settings or unexamined habits in your workflow are quietly costing you time and focus every single day?